I don't necessarily subscribe to the supposed health benefits of tequila, but I do know that no one is ever having a bad time when someone orders a round of margaritas, or as we like to call them here in Australia, margies, with definitely no R pronounced. The margarita has been around since the 1930s. Margarita is actually the Spanish word for daisy, and they were like a family of cocktails which use a liqueur to sweeten the base spirit and citrus as well. So the margarita is essentially a tequila daisy. Its popularity shows no sign of waning though, and the base model has been built on to create many great riffs. One of my favorite is the Tommies, which I've already covered here, but there are plenty more margarita variations out there. So let's look at 3 bangers to try. You must have had a spicy margarita by now. They are absolutely everywhere. Most cocktail menus that I've seen recently actually have their own kind of spin on it, and then I've also just seen a massive uptick in people ordering them off menu. As far as cocktail trends go, I'm all for it because they are delicious, they're really well balanced, and they're interesting. They're a real flavor punch with obviously all that spice and wonderful agave flavor in there. There are a few ways to spice up your margie. I'm doing a bit more of a lo-fi version just by muddling in jalapenos, which is a good way to do it as a one-off, and you can kind of control your spice level that way. But if you are planning on spicy margaritas being a large part of your life, and you know, why wouldn't you really? You could try infusing your tequila with the peppers actually just in the bottle there. And at Bomba, we've also played around with making hot sauces in-house, which you can then dash in, and you can introduce other flavors that way as well. So one of the best that the guys here made was a mango and habanero one, which was so tasty. To be honest, in a pinch, you can even just do a couple of dashes of Tabasco and that'll get the job done. But definitely let me know in the comments if you reckon I should segue from cocktails for an episode and maybe get in some of the guys that like playing around with the hot sauces and do a little hot sauce episode. The way that I'm doing it today though, as I said, you can control your spiciness depending on how hot your chilies are and your personal spice preference. And then I do like to do a little rim with Tajin. So this little kind of chili and lime spice rather than salt. It still adds that seasoning, but you just get a little bit of an extra kick. I also like to add a bit of agave as well as the orange liqueur because spice does like some extra sweetness to sort of underpin it. And I use reposado tequila rather than blanco for just an overall richer drink because it's absolutely meant to be a flavor explosion. So let's get started. Okay, so I haven't actually tried this batch of jalapenos yet, so I'm gonna have a little taste. Wish me luck. Let's hope they're not too spicy, and I'll just kind of decide from there how much I'm gonna pop in. Yeah, they're not super spicy at all, more almost like a green capsicum with just like a little hint of heat. So I'm gonna go 1 full jalapeno, so that can just get sliced up and popped in. And then reposado tequila. So we're not gonna hold back here, it's not a shy drink, so we'll do a full 60 mils of a nice reposado, sort of whatever you have to hand will be perfect. And then we're gonna give that a little muddle just to get the spiciness starting to infuse in there. Then 15 mils of orange liqueur. I'm using a local Curacao, but you know, obviously your Cointreau, Grand Marnier, that kind of thing would totally work as well. 10 mils of agave syrup. Really nice thick one. 20 mils or about 20 to 25 mils of lime juice. As I said, I generally lean my spicy margaritas a little bit sweeter than a regular margarita, just because rather than going for that really crisp and fresh and citrus, you're going for a little bit of a kind of rounder, richer and spicy flavor here. Then you just want to grab a little lime wedge and do a nice half rim. I like to just do it around half of the glass, and then people can kind of choose their own adventure as to how much they actually take in while they're drinking. And just give it a little shake off to make sure that none actually falls in the drink, because Tajin is delicious but doesn't look that great when it's sort of floating about on the top of your drink there. I'm gonna give this a shake. It smells so fresh. That's got a really nice spice. Obviously at this point, if you reckoned it needed a little bit more, you could chuck in some more jalapenos, or again, like a dash of a spicy bitters or a hot sauce. So here we have a lovely spicy margarita. I'm slightly concerned about trying to lift this up, to be honest, but we'll see how we go. It's just such a good drink. I don't know who was the first person to decide to spice up a margarita, but I think they deserve a Nobel Prize or something. It works so well with that really lovely green grassy kind of herbal flavor that you get from the tequila. And I think, you know, it's just a really bright and vibrant, fun cocktail that's always gonna get the party started. Now I did actually forget there, I've got a little dried chili here. So just to make sure, because obviously given that it was green jalapenos, this doesn't look too different from a regular margarita. So just so that nobody gets a fright, pop a little dried chili in there as a warning. So from something very margarita-esque to something a little different, what would happen if a margarita and a Hemingway daiquiri had a baby and added a splash of Campari? Well, I'm sure it would be delicious, of course. I'd like to thank Sam Bygrave for bringing this drink to my attention. Sam writes and edits Boothby, which is an online drinks publication that is an absolute must-read for all drinks nerds. So I will drop a link to that below for anyone that's interested. But the Siesta cocktail was one that he wrote about recently, and it's a modern classic created by bartender Katie Stipe at Julie Rayner's Flatiron Lounge in the early 2000s. So it has a little dash of Campari for a delicious bitter edge, some grapefruit and some Blanco tequila, which are just a match made in heaven. Plus it is pink, and everybody knows that pink drinks just taste better. So for this guy, we're gonna go with 45 mils of a good quality Blanco tequila. Then just a little 10 mils, so just an accent of Campari or some other kind of bitter red aperitif would work. 20 mils of lime juice, 15 mils of fresh grapefruit juice. It's actually quite a good way. I had a bit of an old one that I've used for some twists, so waste not, want not. 15 mils of sugar syrup. So obviously there's some kind of quite a lot of sour and bitter flavors in there, so you are gonna need to balance that out a little bit. So then we're gonna give that a shake. Up to you now how you wanna garnish this one. Doesn't really need anything. Obviously it's very pretty in itself. I'm just gonna go a little dehydrated lime wheel just for the contrast. Look, I haven't seen Barbie yet, but I feel like she'd be pretty happy if she got served this when she was in the real world. It's really good. I'm very, very glad to have discovered this one. See, I'm quite a big fan of kind of more bitter things anyway, so just that tiny little kick of Campari just gives it heaps of length without overpowering. Like, you do still get a really good solid kind of agave hit from the tequila as well. And that grapefruit juice with the lime juice just kind of rounds it all out really nicely. I think that's a really good drink, and I'm honestly not sure why it's maybe not as well known as some other modern classics, so I reckon give it a try, let's make it happen. Now, the other two drinks there were tried and tested. Obviously, I make lots of spicy margaritas, and I had tried the Siesta before today. But I stumbled across the recipe for this next one on Difford's Guide, and I was pretty intrigued, but I haven't actually tried it yet. So let's do that together and see if it's worth your while, but I do have high hopes. Now, I had to click on this recipe when I saw the name Pastry War because I wasn't sure what that was about, and I wasn't disappointed. It's named for a brief and pretty bizarre war fought between France and Mexico in 1838 to 1839 because a French pastry chef living in Mexico complained that his restaurant had been damaged by some Mexican army officers, and that prompted the French to send ships and bombard San Juan de Ulua. The British eventually intervened to broker peace. France was paid for the damages and they withdrew their ships, and everybody had a margarita. No, I'm kidding about that last bit. Some reposado tequila and some mezcal from Mexico, and then Amaro Montenegro. I'm not sure why, because I don't think the Italians had anything to do with it, but you know, I guess it brings the whole drink together. It does also have some saline solution in there, which is something that I've talked about recently, how that can really bring a drink to life. So let's give it a try. So this one is a reposado tequila, so a little bit of an aged tequila compared to your blanco. You're gonna start getting some more warmer kind of citrus and baking spice notes in this one. Any good quality reposado will do. I'm using Arete. And then just little 15 mils of mezcal, so just a hint here, which I'm hoping is roughly how much I have left in this bottle of Ilegal. And then I can buy something new. It's always fun to finish a bottle. Look at that, it's perfect. 15 mils of mezcal, 15 mils of Amaro Montenegro, 15 mils of elderflower liqueur. I am using a French one, Marie Brizard, to stick to the, you know, pastry war theme. Just 15 mils of lime juice, so I guess it's gonna be a little bit more kind of booze forward. This one, you do have some bitterness from the Amaro kicking in there, and the elderflower isn't too sweet. It's quite nice and floral too. So I'm gonna trust that it will balance out. And then a couple of dashes of saline solution. Now we're gonna shake that all up and see how we go. Then a little dehydrated lime wheel to garnish. And I'll have a proper try. It's super cool. I really honestly would never have thought to put these ingredients together, so it's always fun to find something that kind of opens your eyes to a world of possibility, because Amaro and tequila, it makes sense that they would go well together because they've got, you know, that kind of like herbal, sort of almost like quite floral character coming through there. Again, it's got that nice bitterness from the Amaro Montenegro, but not as kind of intense as Campari in the previous one. So yeah, just really lovely, quite fresh. I definitely think that that was the right amount of lime juice. It would be a little bit too bitter otherwise. Or too sour or bitter. So yeah, really well balanced, really fun one that I'm glad to have added to the repertoire. And you know, we've learned a little bit of history here today as well. At least I have. I don't know if anyone else knew about the pastry war, but learning through drinking is how I like to learn best. So there we have 3 very different riffs on a margarita, and I hope that I might have introduced even the most ardent agave fans to something new. I have to say, I'd never thought to use Amari in margarita twist, but I don't think I'll ever look back from this. More than a margie. So now you know.